Alright YouTube, so not too long ago I saw a fun post talking about actors that would and actresses that would fit well in Star Wars, and I'll make a separate vlog talking about that in its entirety, but for this vlog I thought of the cool idea to talk about how I think different castings could have gone for the role of Anakin Skywalker, which is leading me to come up with other cool Star Wars ideas and what I think could have gone. You know, as much as I love the prequels, I think there are, like, things that could have been done a little better, a little differently, or maybe with an expanded lore, such as, like, Clone Wars live action series in between the events, or maybe even a series slightly after, like say this series would take place in the 2000s. So it's all hypothetical, but I thought it would be fun to talk about. So actor Christian Bale was considered, or one of the considered people for Anakin Skywalker, and I think he could have been a fascinating pick. There's only one problem that I had, but I was reading a little bit on like forums to see like how this could have gone, because I feel like the elephant in the room is that he's like seemingly a little old for, or would have been old for, the role of Anakin Skywalker, as like Anakin, I believe, in Attack of the Clones was like 19 or 20, and by that time Bale was like 28, which is is a big difference. But there's nothing wrong with aging down actors, although he does look pretty mature, so that's like kind of a little bit of an awkward moment. But I did also read on the same forum that supposedly Vader was supposed to be in like his 50s in the original trilogy, which does make a lot more sense until some things were like retconned, and I don't know the whole story, but point is, I'm saying that regardless of age, Bale could have been a great Anakin Skywalker. He actually has the same name as me, funny enough, which is definitely intriguing and made me love his Batman even more, maybe a subconscious bias. So do I think it would have worked out in real life? Not really, but it's fun to hypothesize and think about hypothetical ideas. So one thing I do say about The Phantom Menace is I do think, and I do stand on this hill, that I think Anakin should have been a little older. Maybe that Anakin could have been like a teenager, like Hayden Christensen instead of Jake Lloyd, and then we go to Bale, or some of the other actors that were considered for Anakin Skywalker that I think would have been super interesting. But I do honestly like Hayden Christensen. I think he was great as the role, although his I messed up, choke on my tongue there, but his casting was a little controversial and didn't leave the best impression on everyone. But if with more expanded lore, I think it could have been super interesting. And my predominant thing about this movie pitch is that, yeah, it's pretty much a movie pitch, forgot to say that from the get-go, is although there are alternate Anakin Skywalkers, I think that seeing other characters play Star Wars roles could have been interesting, because although that does kind of separate Star Wars from things like Marvel and DC, for example, I do still think Star Wars shares more similarities with those than initially viewed. And I made a little drawing of Christian Bale as Anakin Skywalker. I absolutely love how this drawing came out, and I love this super little mini sketchbook. So I think overall Bale could have been a great Anakin Skywalker, and Darth Vader too. And I'll maybe go into a little depth about my ideas for how it could have gone, but I'm kind of, that's what this vlog is. What am I saying? So this is Shadow the Hedgehog, who is voiced by Keanu Reeves, who would be great in Star Wars, especially as some of the comic Star Wars characters that I've seen fan casted as, which is sort of a tangent, but yeah, overall I wouldn't change too much of the prequel cast, to be honest. I just like hypothesizing about different variations of Anakin Skywalker, as there have been many, such as different animated series. So I think this series would be a live action animated style. Okay, that makes no sense, but let me recuperate my ideas on what I was writing, because I didn't script this vlog very well. So another actor considered for Anakin was Leonardo DiCaprio, and this is General Grievous as a more intimidating and cooler version, because the live action Grievous did look super cool with the CGI, but I think they should have done him better justice and made him more vicious like they did in Clone Wars 2003, which is kind of what this series is taking place as the alternate Anakin, either Bale or DiCaprio. But DiCaprio's character in Inception reminds me a lot of Anakin, when Anakin was terrified of losing his wife and turned to the dark side, and somewhat similar things were taking place in the movie Inception by Christopher Nolan, which is an amazing movie. So I am a little embarrassed to admit this, but I have not seen any Fast and Furious movies, but I do know Paul Walker was considered for Anakin Skywalker, the role, which I'm not terribly familiar with his acting, as you know, but seeing as he was such a beloved actor, I think he could have been probably well, and I'm guessing his characters in the Fast Furious series or whatever else he was in, because like I said, I'm embarrassed to admit it, I'm not too familiar with his work, but he definitely does kind of give me Anakin Skywalker vibes in terms of his look. I also feel that, although Anakin is young in the Clone Wars, that Christian Bale or DiCaprio at the time would have been a perfect sort of in between Obi-Wan and sort of a Jedi Knight apprentice to take on Ahsoka, who could have been super interesting to see in live action, or at least, my apologies, in the live action prequels, because we have seen her in live action, and I loved Ahsoka season 1 and can't wait for season 2. And overall, although, like, it's cool to think about alternate castings for Star Wars, or what could have been different in certain ways, or more expanded lore on the big screen, which, like, I'm happy we're getting a lot more expanded lore on the big screen. So yeah, overall, I do hope Hayden returns for Ahsoka season 2 and that we see more of him, because maybe that's kind of what the inspiration for this vlog is maybe whether I realize it or not, I feel kind of that we haven't seen enough of him in terms of Star Wars, and that's why I'm thinking about how Christian Bale, Leonardo DiCaprio could have been as Anakin. But yeah, overall, like, for example, I have nothing, at all curiosity about Obi-Wan Kenobi, because we've seen so much of him, but, like, we've not seen enough of Hayden as Anakin, so bring him back, Star Wars. Until then, I'll go into a little bit more plot lines about, like, sort of ideas what could have been on the live action Star Wars, because so much happened in, like, in the Clone Wars. I haven't even seen it all, but, like, I know in that scene in Attack of the Clones, maybe something that could have been interesting to incorporate in that movie would be to have included the flashbacks of what Anakin and Obi-Wan were talking about on the elevator, which I don't remember too much, but I'm 99.9% sure they showed it in the animated Clone Wars. So yeah, as conclusion for this vlog, the next vlog will be talking more about this idea, because, like, I mainly made this vlog to sort of diffuse from my ideas and sort of challenge myself to see how I could do without a script for a movie pitch, because most of my movie pitches I script a little bit, but this one I didn't at all, so it's sort of just a test run, test of the time, so testing the waters, which is fun. So I am curious to see if, like, Christian Bale could somehow be Anakin Skywalker, but that would probably happen in a voice acting role, which could be interesting, but they'd have to do that series right. Like, it'd have to be everything that's great about the Clone Wars, but not the Clone Wars, which is quite the challenge. So let me show some drawings. Well, I haven't much drawings, but this is Dune Messiah cover. I really like how this one came out. I'm reading the book, which I know Dune, I believe, did give a little inspiration for Star Wars, and I love Star Wars, I love Dune, and I love you guys for watching. Stay tuned more soon. Shout out Husky for the beats. Bye.